Bring in Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. He is a member of the Finance Committee, Budget Committee, and a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus. Good to see you, Senator, and thank you for joining us from the Capitol. A lot to talk to you about. Can we dive into NPR, PBS leaders? They're testifying on Capitol Hill before the House Oversight DOJ Subcommittee. It's called Anti-American Airwaves. That is the hearing titled here. And there is this thought by conservative leaders that they are biased. I say they, meaning NPR and PBS. Yet they receive federal funding. What are you expecting out of today? And maybe your thoughts on NPR, PBS, and government funding.
Well, goodness, we grew up with PBS and National Public Radio, and they were typically entertainment, soft stories, but unfortunately they become political. And if they're political, then they should not receive federal funding. So I think most Americans are done with them. I think no matter what rules and regulations we put around them, they're going to find loopholes, that those organizations are now led by radical liberals for the most part. So I think that's why most of us tune them out, except to listen to their crying. It started off that folks were just obsessed with President Trump. Now, many of those people on those stations, on other legacy media, now they have a full-blown psychosis. They're detached from reality, and they're not willing to accept that Donald Trump is now the president. And by the way, 20-year high in Americans think we're going in the right direction. The country is going in the right direction. A 20-year high of Americans agreeing with President Trump's agenda.
Yeah. Indeed. And I was just reminded of NPR when the news of the Hunter Biden laptop story broke. They immediately dismissed it, even refusing to cover it for the audience who might have wanted to know some details about that leading into the election. So either way, we'll watch and see if perhaps that's brought up by some members of Congress today. I want to pivot to a bill you're introducing. It's called Defining Male and Female Act. Can you tell us about this bill and why this is even necessary now?
Yeah, I can't believe it's necessary, but as you all know, I was an obstetrician for 30 years of my life. I delivered a baby most every day. I delivered the baby, and I would say a prayer until it made its first cry. And then as the baby started crying, I would hand the baby to the new mom and the new dad and say, "It's a boy, it's a girl." I never said, well, we're not sure what this is. We're going to do a little gender affirmation later, and we're going to assess this baby in 3 years. And I'd fill out the birth certificate, and I would check male or female. So what this bill does, and I'm embarrassed that we have to do this, is say, look, if this child, if this baby, if this future young man makes sperm, then he's a male. He's a dude. And if it's a person that makes oocytes, makes eggs, then guess what? It's a girl. It's interesting, again, 90% of Americans support President Trump on this agenda. He did an executive order on day number 1 to protect the rights, the safety, and dignity of women. And this bill would codify that boys are boys and girls are girls. Let's keep boys out of girls' sports. Let's keep boys out of the girls' locker room. If you have a passport, you need to put on your biological sex, not your gender identity. If you're in a public place like a prison, a jail, some type of housing situation, public housing, the boys go on the boys' side and the girls go on the girls' side. And again, 80-90% of Americans agree with this. We just need a little more common sense. But this bill would codify exactly what President Trump did in his executive order.
I mean, did you ever think that we even get to this point where we have to introduce legislation like this and time has to be taken? I mean, obviously, even as through your occupation of being a doctor, I think you have a little bit more insight in this. And then here we are. There you are as a lawmaker now having to make this stance.
Yeah, even 3-5 years ago, I didn't know what a transgender was. And certainly there's other pronouns and all those things, abbreviations I did know and I understand and I respect. And I respect people that believe that they're a transgender person, but their rights cannot overwhelm another person's rights. I think back to Title IX being passed when I was in middle school, and just overnight saw the opportunities for young ladies to change. Could you imagine watching the NCAA basketball tournament this weekend? Final 16, my Kansas State girls are in it. By the way, go Wildcats, every woman a Wildcat. Could you imagine if the other team had a 6'9" boy, biological boy on that team, and we had no chance? Who would watch the game? Who would even watch the game, and who would care?
Yeah. It's pointing out how things have become so unfair in some of these situations. Now we're getting lawmakers involved. And by the way, we're going to get some senators on record with how they view your bill. So that'll be very telling. Senator Roger Marshall, we'll be watching for it. Thank you so much for taking the time with us this morning.